The air in Chicago on a late October evening was a blend of biting chill and the metallic scent of Lake Michigan. Fog, thick and gray, clung to the base of the towering skyscrapers, muting the frantic city lights into ghostly halos. It was a night meant for secrets, and it was on such a night that Eliza Novak's ordinary world began to fracture. Eliza, a 26-year-old freelance graphic designer, was hunched over her glowing screen in her small, neat apartment in Logan Square. Her life was defined by clean lines, muted colors, and deadlines a world away from the chaos that brewed unseen beneath the city's surface. A heavy thud against her door startled her. It wasn't the tentative knock of a delivery person. It was a determined, singular sound. She checked the peephole but saw only the swirling, opaque fog that seemed to have swallowed the entire hallway. Hesitantly, she unlocked the door. On the mat lay a heavy, square package wrapped in plain brown paper, secured with twine. No name, no return address, just a handwritten label bearing her own name and apartment number in elegant, cursive script. A strange sense of dread, cold and immediate, settled in her stomach. Inside the package, nested within layers of tissue paper, was a single, stunning object, a necklace. It wasn't modern or flashy. It was an antique, heavy silver chain holding a pendant carved from polished obsidian. The pendant depicted a hand, stylized and rigid, clutching a single, sharp thorn. The craftsmanship was exquisite, but the symbol itself felt dark, ancient, and undeniably menacing. Tucked beneath the necklace was a folded, yellowed piece of paper. The paper crumbled slightly at her touch. The obsidian hand seeks its own. You are found. Do not wear the mark. Run, now. Eliza's breath hitched. The obsidian hand? It sounded like something out of a pulp novel, yet the cold weight of the obsidian pendant in her palm felt terrifyingly real. As her mind raced to dismiss it as a cruel prank, the television in the corner, which she'd left muted, suddenly blared a news bulletin. Breaking news. Police confirm the death of billionaire investor and philanthropist, Valerius Volkov, 55, in a highly suspicious, early-morning explosion at his suburban estate. Volkov was the patriarch of the notoriously private Volkov family and CEO of Volkov Global Acquisitions, believed by many to be the legitimate front for one of Chicago's most impenetrable organized crime syndicates. Authorities are calling it an apparent assassination. Eliza stared at the screen, a strange tingling sensation spreading from her fingertips up her arms. Valerius Volkov. The name meant nothing to her, yet the news report seemed to resonate with the chilling warning in her hand. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was a blocked number. She almost didn't answer, but the adrenaline spiking through her veins urged her on. Hello? Eliza Novak, a voice, deep and accented, stated flatly. It wasn't a question. Your father is dead. The game has changed. Eliza stepped back, nearly tripping over her own coffee table. Who is this? My father is. Your real father, Valerius Volkov. You are his daughter. You are the missing piece. The voice was devoid of emotion, a cold, smooth instrument of fact. My name is Nikolai Volkov. I am your brother, and the new head of the family. The necklace you hold is a beacon. Throw it away. They are coming for the Volkov bloodline, and you are the key they need to destroy everything. Before she could process the impossible claim, the line went dead. Eliza dropped the phone, her hand shaking violently. She looked from the terrifying inscription on the note to the ominous pendant, then to the image of the stoic, deceased Valerius Volkov on her screen. A lost heir, a dead mob boss, a brutal, unknown brother. Her life, once defined by the gentle hum of her computer fan, was now roaring with the terrifying engine of a world she never knew existed. She wasn't just in danger, she was at the center of a storm, and the man who had just claimed her as kin was, by his own admission, the very heart of the organization known only in whispers, the Wraith. Outside, the fog seemed to press closer to the window pane, like a curtain being drawn around her fate. She had to decide, and fast, dismiss the whole thing as a delusion, or heed the chilling, impossible warning. The call disconnected, leaving a ringing silence that was far more deafening than the chaos of the city. Eliza Novak stood paralyzed, the ancient obsidian necklace dangling from her fingers, its ominous weight now feeling like a shackle. Valerius Volkov is my father. Nikolai Volkov is my brother. The Obsidian Hand. The names didn't belong in her quiet, predictable life. They belonged in a cold, brutal epic. She fought the urge to discard the warning, to convince herself it was an elaborate, terrifying hoax. But the clinical, undeniable authority in Nikolai's voice, the sheer audacity of the claims, resonated with a deep, unsettling emptiness she'd always carried the vague, broken memories of a childhood that began elsewhere. She walked to the small mirror in her hallway. Eliza was accustomed to seeing an unremarkable reflection: soft brown hair, large, worried eyes, and the perpetual faint smudge of charcoal under one ear from leaning over her drawing tablet. But now, she looked closer. She tilted her head, suddenly searching for the echo of the imposing face of Valerius Volkov she'd seen on the news. Could it be true? A faint noise, a subtle shift of weight on the fire escape outside her window snapped her out of her introspection. Adrenaline flooded her system. The fog outside had thickened, making the alley below invisible. Yet the sound was distinct, closer than it should be. Run, now, the chilling message echoed in her head. She grabbed her smallest backpack and, with shaking hands, began to toss in essentials: wallet, laptop, her livelihood, and a change of clothes. Her gaze fell on the necklace. It was a beacon, Nikolai had said. She couldn't wear it, but she couldn't leave the only tangible clue to her identity behind either. She shoved it deep into a zippered pocket of the bag. Before she could finish zipping the bag, a heavy thump against her front door sent her flying across the room. It was forceful, purposeful, and laced with menace. Whoever was out there wasn't knocking. They were testing the lock. Eliza scrambled toward the back of the apartment, her heart hammering against her ribs. The fire escape. The same one where she'd heard the sound moments ago. They're already here. She fumbled with the latch on the window and threw it open, just as the wood frame around her front door splintered with a sickening crack. She didn't look back. She clambered onto the cold metal railing, the Chicago wind instantly biting through her sweater. The fog was her only ally, swallowing her as she began her panic descent. Just as she reached the bottom rung and dropped lightly onto the grimy alley concrete, she heard a voice from above, sharp and commanding. "She's gone. Check the perimeter. She cannot leave the city tonight." Eliza pressed herself against the cold brick wall, pulling her hood low over her face. She saw two figures in dark, expensive overcoats appear at the top of the escape ladder, their faces obscured by the dense mist. They weren't common thugs. They moved with the practiced, predatory grace of trained professionals. The Obsidian Hand, or maybe the ones hunting the Obsidian Hand. She slipped into the main street, blending into the small group of late-night pedestrians. Her ordinary appearance, usually a source of irritation, was now her only shield. She walked quickly, head down, praying that no one noticed the raw panic vibrating beneath her calm facade. Where could she go? She couldn't call the police. Nikolai had implicated the most powerful organized crime group in the city. She couldn't go to her friends. She wouldn't risk bringing the Mafia's attention down on them. Then, she remembered the last thing Nikolai had said. "They are coming for the Volkov bloodline, and you are the key." Nikolai, the Wraith, the brother who had just thrown her world into chaos, the one who had warned her, however coldly. If she was the key to their destruction, he, the new king, was the only one who could possibly understand the players in this impossible game. Despite every logical instinct screaming at her to run as far away from the Volkov name as possible, a cold, desperate resolve settled in her. She needed answers, and the source of her danger was also the source of her only possible protection. She hailed a taxi, her voice barely a whisper. "The Gold Coast, please. The Volkov Tower." Eliza Novak, the unremarkable graphic designer, was heading straight into the heart of the storm. The ordinary life was over. The journey of the lost heir had just begun. The Volkov Tower was not a building. It was a fortress carved from glass and steel, a monument to cold, hard power rising above Chicago's Gold Coast. The exclusive nightclub occupying the top 3 floors, the Pantheon, served as the Obsidian Hand's unspoken headquarters, a place where legitimate business and illicit deals were struck beneath the dazzling, deceptive cover of high society. Eliza Novak stepped out of the taxi, clutching her small backpack, feeling horribly out of place. Her simple jeans and sweater clashed sharply with the parade of silk, diamonds, and bespoke tailoring flowing into the entrance. She took a steadying breath, faced the devil. Gaining entry was surprisingly easy. She simply stated she was here for Nikolai Volkov. The name, spoken with a desperate conviction she didn't know she possessed, acted like a secret password. A formidable, silent man in a crisp suit escorted her past velvet ropes and security checks and up to the penthouse. The music inside was a deep, pulsating rhythm, a dark heart beating beneath the superficial gaiety. The Pantheon was a sensory overload of deep crimson lighting, black marble, and the low, dangerous murmur of power brokers. She was led through the main dance floor, a swirling vortex of beautiful, reckless people, and into a private, elevated lounge overlooking the entire city. The air in this space was different, sharper, colder, utterly still. And there he was. Nikolai Volkov stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, a silhouette against the scattered city lights. He was even more commanding than the terrifying voice on the phone had suggested. His black suit was a second skin, his posture radiating a predatory stillness. When he finally turned, his eyes, the color of cold, polished steel, locked onto hers. The air thinned. He wasn't handsome in a conventional, friendly way. He was beautiful in a terrifying, sculpted manner. The intensity of his gaze felt like a physical force, stripping away her defenses. This was the Wraith, and the name was fitting. He moved with the quiet lethalness of a shadow. "You came," he stated. His voice the same deep baritone she remembered, yet closer, more dangerous. It carried the weight of absolute authority. Eliza dropped her bag, feeling a dizzying mix of fear and an inexplicable magnetic pull. "You called me. You told me my life was a lie and that I was in danger. What did you expect?" Nikolai took a slow, deliberate step toward her, closing the distance, forcing her to look up at him. A flight. A scream. Not this. He gestured dismissively toward her backpack. "You walk into the lion's den wearing a peasant's coat. Foolish or brave?" "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. "I need you to tell me the truth about Valerius Volkov, and about that." She reached into her bag and pulled out the obsidian necklace, its dark surface reflecting the muted lounge lights. Nikolai's cold demeanor flickered. His eyes, fixed on the pendant, held a flash of something complicated: pain, recognition, and deep, cold fury. "The Obsidian Hand," he said, his voice dropping to a gravelly register. "It is the emblem of our family. That necklace was meant for you, Anya, your true name. You and I are twins, separated at birth in the chaos of a rival's attack years ago. Our father kept your existence a secret, hoping to keep you safe." "Twins?" Eliza choked out, the word feeling foreign on her tongue. "Why now? Why send a warning and then demand I run, only to let me walk straight into your stronghold?" Nikolai's jaw clenched. "The warning was sent by our father's oldest, most loyal protector before my guards could find you. He was following old orders. Now I am in charge. The people who killed our father will come for the rest of the bloodline. You are the key to a crucial piece of the family's legacy that only the female heir can unlock. I cannot allow you to be found by them." He stepped even closer, his sheer proximity overwhelming her senses, a mix of expensive cologne, clean linen, and raw danger. "Consider this your new reality, Anya. You are under my protection now. You will stay here. You will follow my rules. You will learn the game. If you run, you die. If you stay, you are mine to command." The music below swelled, a dark, passionate crescendo. Eliza looked into his eyes, the eyes of a predator, a brother, and now, her unwilling guardian. She saw the cold, brutal necessity of his position, but deep, deep inside, she saw the ghost of a shared past, a vulnerability he desperately tried to hide. "And if I refuse?" she challenged, finding a strength she didn't know she possessed. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Refusal is not an option. You are a Volkov, and you just walked onto my dance floor." He reached out a gloved hand, not to console her, but to claim her. The contact, though minimal, sent a jarring jolt through her. She was now truly in his world, a world where the stakes were life, death, and the very future of Chicago's shadow empire. The lounge air crackled with unspoken threats and burgeoning tension. Eliza's hand trembled slightly as Nikolai's fingers brushed her wrist, a brief, electrifying contact before he withdrew, stepping back into his own cold sphere. "Anya," he repeated the name, tasting it. "You are wearing the face of a graphic designer, but you possess the blood of a Volkov. That makes you dangerous to yourself, and to those who might try to use you." He moved to a sleek, minimalist bar counter. "We will discuss the specifics tomorrow. Tonight, you rest. But first, a lesson. In this world, trust is a fatal weakness. Do not assume my protection comes without a price." Eliza finally found her voice, sharp with a mix of fear and indignation. "A price? You're talking about my life. You drag me into this nightmare, tell me I'm the missing piece to some deadly game, and then demand obedience? What makes you think you're the lesser evil?" Nikolai poured himself a single measure of amber liquid, his gaze never leaving hers. "The lesser evil, sestra, sister? That is a generous term for me. I am the Wraith. I am the one who keeps this city from tearing itself apart. The ones who hunted you tonight are not interested in protecting you. They want to expose and exploit the weakness in the Volkov structure." Our father ensured that only the recognized male and female heirs, standing together, can access certain assets. Assets they covet. He finally turned, his eyes hard and unwavering. My price is simple. Absolute secrecy and total loyalty. You will not contact your old life. You will not ask questions in front of the staff. You will only move when and where I allow you. Do you understand the gravity of that? Eliza gripped her hands together, fighting the urge to flinch. He saw right through her, not just her fear, but her deep-seated independence. I understand the threat, but you need me, Nikolai. Don't mistake my presence here for surrender. I will obey your rules until I have the answers I need, and then I will decide my own future. A flicker of respect, swift and startling, crossed Nikolai's eyes before his customary mask of ice returned. An admirable spirit. Let's hope it doesn't get you killed before you learn how to use it. He lifted his glass in a silent, chilling toast. You have one of the penthouse guest suites. A trusted associate will show you. Do not leave the floor. It is secure from them, but not from me. He didn't wait for her reply. He simply gave a subtle nod toward a massive man who materialized instantly from the shadows of the doorway, the man who had escorted her up. Dmitri will attend to your needs, Nikolai instructed the guard, his voice final. Report any movement outside of the suite directly to me. As she was led away, Eliza cast one last, lingering look at her brother. He hadn't touched the drink. He simply stared out at the sprawling, indifferent city of Chicago. He was utterly alone, yet radiating a power that made the glass walls around him seem flimsy. He was trapped in his own tower, a king of shadows, and now she was trapped there with him. The journey to the suite was a silent parade of opulence and fear. When Dmitri finally opened the door, Eliza stepped into a sanctuary that felt more like a cage of gold. As the heavy door clicked shut behind her, she realized she hadn't just entered a new world. She had become a pawn in a game of steel and fire, played by the ruthless hand of the Wraith. She was safe, yes, but utterly, dangerously his. The penthouse suite was less a room and more a sprawling glass-walled apartment, overlooking the sparkling grid of Chicago. Yet for Eliza, the luxury was oppressive. She felt the heavy, silent surveillance of Nikolai Volkov, even through the solid walls. She spent the night pacing, the adrenaline finally giving way to exhaustion and despair. The real danger, she realized, wasn't just the enemies outside, but the man inside the tower, her brother, who treated her like a valuable commodity rather than kin. The next morning, the confrontation she expected arrived not with a bang, but with the soft chime of a delivered breakfast tray and a stark, black leather folio. She sat at the massive marble table, pushing aside the perfect French pastries to stare at the document inside the folio. It wasn't a family history or a memoir, it was a contract. Confidentiality and protection agreement. Volkov Heir. The terms were brutal, drawn up by lawyers who specialized in shadows and iron. It legally renamed her Anya Volkov, formalized Nikolai as her sole legal guardian and representative, and most importantly, demanded that she hand over the obsidian necklace, the emblem, to him for safekeeping. In return, she received full, unlimited protection by the Obsidian Hand. Before she could absorb the shock, the suite door opened without a knock. Nikolai entered, looking impeccably tailored and utterly ruthless, holding a tablet instead of a weapon. Anya, he began, his voice flat. Dmitri said you were awake. You have read the terms. Terms, she spat, pushing the document away. This isn't a family reunion, Nikolai. It's an annexation. You are stripping me of my name, my identity, my past, and now you demand the only thing I have left from my supposed real family, this necklace. He remained unmoved, taking the seat opposite her. It is reality. Your past life as Eliza Novak is irrelevant and, frankly, a liability. The contract formalizes your position under my umbrella. The name Anya Volkov is necessary to access what our father left you. And the necklace? Nikolai leaned forward, his steel eyes piercing hers. The emblem is a physical key, Anya. Our father's final protection for his children is locked behind it. The moment anyone outside this organization sees it on you, they will know you are the heir. They will kill you to take it. It must be secured. His reasoning was cold, practical, and terrifyingly logical. She was faced with a choice: cling to her identity and die, or accept his rules and live, becoming the very person she feared. What if I refuse to sign? She challenged, watching him closely for a weakness. Refusal means you reject my protection, he stated, his voice a low growl. You will be escorted out of the tower. Within 24 hours, you will be found by the very people who murdered our father, and you will be forced to tell them everything you know, which is nothing, before they discard you. Do you want to take that gamble? Eliza felt the bitter, burning tears of impotence sting her eyes. She wasn't fighting a man. She was fighting a dynasty, a system, a cruel and undeniable fate. She picked up the pen. "If I sign this," she said, her voice shaking but steadying on the final words, "I will be protected, but you will owe me the truth. Every single detail of what happened to me, why I was taken, and what this legacy is." Nikolai paused. The silence stretched, heavy with significance. For the first time, she saw a hesitation in the Wraith's demeanor. "Agreed," he finally conceded, his voice low. "I will give you the truth, but you must survive long enough to hear it." She signed the contract with a flourish, the name Anya Volkov feeling like a brand, a commitment to blood and darkness. Then, with a heavy sigh, she unzipped her bag and pulled out the obsidian necklace, handing it across the marble table to Nikolai. He took the emblem, his fingers brushing hers again, a faint, unavoidable current passing between them. He didn't lock it away immediately. Instead, he examined it with a profound, almost reverent sadness. In that brief moment, the ice cracked, and Anya saw a flash of the lonely, burdened man beneath the powerful facade. "Welcome home, Anya," he said, the words a promise and a curse. With the contract signed and the emblem secured, Anya Volkov was officially integrated into the volatile world of the Obsidian Hand. Her new home was the penthouse of the Volkov Tower, an opulent cage she quickly dubbed the Phoenix Nest. Her days immediately fell into a routine dictated entirely by Nikolai. He assigned her a new wardrobe, sleek, elegant, and designed for invisibility and mobility in high-stakes environments. He also assigned her a tutor, Marcus, a distinguished, silver-haired man who was the family's historian, strategist, and intelligence chief. Marcus introduced Anya to the cold, stark reality of the Volkov legacy. "The Obsidian Hand," Marcus explained one afternoon in the penthouse library, surrounded by leather-bound, coded journals, is a structure built on order, not chaos. "We are not brutes, Anya. We are the silent regulators of the world's most valuable commodities: data, logistics, and influence. Your grandfather built the foundation, your father legitimized the face, and now, Nikolai must secure the future." "And what is my role in this order?" Anya asked, struggling to absorb the vastness of the enterprise. "You are the balance," Marcus said simply. "The Volkov tradition states that the male heir brings the steel, the female heir brings the sight. Your mother, your real mother, had the vision. You, as the true daughter of Valerius, are the key to a network of encrypted assets, a financial and intelligence vault that only you, and only with the emblem, can unlock." Anya spent hours poring over history, economics, and the chillingly effective methods of the Obsidian Hand. She learned that Valerius had kept her existence a secret because a rival faction, the Crimson Pact, had been hunting for her for decades, knowing the significance of the female heir. Meanwhile, her relationship with Nikolai remained a tense dance of distrust and involuntary attraction. They rarely spoke outside of strategic meetings, where Nikolai would dissect intelligence reports with frightening precision, often ignoring her entirely. Yet, their interactions were charged with an undeniable, shared intensity. One evening, Anya found Nikolai in the training gym, a hidden, high-tech space beneath the club. He was engaged in a brutal, silent sparring session with 2 large security guards. The speed, ferocity, and economy of his movements were mesmerizing. He wasn't just fighting, he was calculating, anticipating, and overwhelming. When the session ended, and the guards staggered back, sweat dripping onto the polished floor, Nikolai simply wiped his face with a towel and looked over at her, his chest heaving slightly. "Watching me, Anya." His voice was rougher than usual. "Learning," she countered, crossing her arms. "I need to know what kind of shadow I'm walking in." He walked toward her, and for the first time she saw a vulnerability in the raw exertion. "I am a necessary shadow. The man who killed our father, Silas Thorne of the Crimson Pact, is looking for a weak point. He is relentless, and he is close. He thinks that by capturing you, he cripples my access to the legacy and forces my hand." "Then teach me to fight," Anya blurted out, surprising herself. "If I am the target, I need to be more than a pawn waiting for rescue." Nikolai's lips curved into a slight, mocking smile, the first genuine expression of amusement she had ever seen. It softened his harsh features for a fleeting second. "Fighting is the easy part, Sestra," he said, tossing her a towel. "Surviving in this world requires thinking 3 moves ahead and knowing who to trust. And you, Anya, trust no one here. Least of all me." He walked past her, the scent of sweat and power lingering in his wake. His words, a chilling challenge, were a clear reflection of his own solitary existence. She was a Volkov now, and in the Phoenix Nest, every relationship was a negotiation, and every moment was a test of survival. The tension between Anya and Nikolai began to manifest not in open conflict, but in the subtle ways they observed each other. Anya, the observer by trade, watched Nikolai conduct his empire, the calculated phone calls, the late-night clandestine meetings, the silent signals given to his security detail. She noted the profound, consuming loneliness that clung to him, a constant companion to his power. One cold afternoon, she found herself in a dusty, cordoned-off section of the penthouse Eliza Volkov's old study. It was a time capsule of their father's life, heavy with the scent of old leather and Cuban tobacco. Dmitri, the vigilant guard, stood by the entrance, allowing her only because Nikolai had authorized access to understand the source of the rot. Anya began sifting through books and framed photos. Most were formal, cold portraits, but in a hidden compartment of the desk, she found a stack of old, worn photographs. The images were jarring. A younger, less severe Valerius, smiling a concept Anya found hard to grasp. And in one photo, taken in what looked like a Mediterranean garden, stood a woman with bright eyes and a vibrant, unreserved smile. She had Anya's gentle nose and the same shape of the jaw, but her spirit was unbound. Her mother. But the photo that stole her breath was a snapshot of two small children, toddlers, their hands clasped over a large shared teddy bear. They had the same dark hair and wide, serious eyes. Nikolai and Anya. Anya's fingers traced the image, and a forgotten fragment of a memory surfaced. The overwhelming smell of roses, the sound of a woman singing a quiet lullaby in a language she didn't know, and then the sudden, violent jolt of a loud noise, followed by silence and the cold feel of someone else's hand pulling her away. A quiet sound made her jump. Nikolai stood in the doorway, his silhouette imposing. He had clearly been watching her. He walked over slowly, his gaze fixed on the photo in her hand. The usual steel in his eyes softened, replaced by a deep, weary pain. "I remember that day," he said, his voice barely a whisper, thick with nostalgia and loss. "It was our 4th birthday. She was trying to teach us Russian lullabies. She was on fire. Who took me?" Anya finally managed, her voice thick with emotion. "Why did our father allow me to be raised by strangers?" Nikolai took the photo from her hand, his thumb resting gently on the image of the young girl. It was Silas Thorne. The assassination was meant for Valerius, but our mother intervened. She was killed, and in the chaos, you were taken. Valerius and his men recovered you hours later, but the psychological damage was done. You were catatonic. The family doctor recommended you be sent away, raised in a normal environment, away from the violence and the constant risk, to protect your mind. He paused, his eyes meeting hers, a shared burden in the silence. Our father gave you away to save you. He paid a significant sum to a trusted, childless couple in the suburbs who believed they were adopting an orphan. He saw you often, from a distance. He never stopped looking after you. He abandoned me, Anya corrected, her voice brittle. The realization that her entire life was a carefully constructed lie designed by a ruthless mob boss was a profound blow. He protected you, Nikolai countered, his voice sharp with the defensiveness of a loyal son. It was the ultimate sacrifice for a man obsessed with legacy. He lived every day knowing his most valuable asset, his daughter, was beyond his reach, simply to keep her alive. He handed the photograph back. "The truth is complex, Anya, and it is dangerous. Thorne knew our father kept a secret. He just found out what that secret was when our father died. He has men scouring the city for a woman who fits your description. Every day we delay in finding the key to the vault, we risk being overwhelmed." Anya looked at the picture of the two innocent children. "What key? What is in this vault that is worth this much blood?" "The very future of the Obsidian Hand," Nikolai stated, his voice hardening once more, the Wraith returning, and the proof of who murdered our mother. The memory, the history, the shared grief, it all bound them together. Two broken pieces of a shattered dynasty. Anya knew then that she was not just fighting for survival. She was fighting for her mother's justice, and for the brother who was too cold to admit he needed her. The realization of her traumatic past ignited a fierce drive in Anya. She accepted her tutor, Marcus, with renewed focus, devouring the information about the Obsidian Hand, its structure, its enemies, its vast, intricate operations across Chicago and beyond. She was determined to become the site her lineage demanded. The most critical lessons revolved around the unwritten rules of the Hand, the code that governed every member, From the lowest foot soldier to the capo dei capi, Nikolai Volkov. We are defined by three things, Marcus explained during a long session on ethics and intelligence: silence, loyalty, and retribution. Break any of the three, and the hand turns against you. Anya, now dressed in sharp, expensive attire that matched her new identity, questioned him. And how does the capo enforce these rules? Through absolute control, Anya. Nikolai does not lead through charm. He leads through necessity and fear. He makes choices others cannot. He has removed weakness, ruthlessly, from the organization. That is why he is known as the Wraith. Her new routine also included combat training. As she requested, Nikolai assigned her a specialist, but he often watched her sessions, standing silently in the glass-walled observation deck, his presence a constant pressure. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Anya found Nikolai in the penthouse kitchen, standing over a simple cup of black tea, a surprising domestic sight for a man of his stature. "Your stance is improving," he noted without turning, his voice low. "But you hesitate. You think too much about the consequence of the blow." "I was raised to value life, not to take it," she retorted, grabbing a bottle of water. He finally turned, his gaze intense. "That is the luxury of your past, Anya. A luxury you no longer have. Thorn and his men will not hesitate. They will torture you for information and then discard you like trash." He set his mug down with a hard, final clink. "The hand has a zero-tolerance policy for weakness. If you are weak, you endanger the whole. I need you to be strong. Not just physically, but emotionally. You cannot allow sentiment to cloud judgment." Anya took a step toward him. "Is that a rule you follow, Nikolai? Or a rule you hide behind?" The question struck a nerve. His jaw tightened, and the coldness in his eyes intensified to the point of pain. "That is none of your concern. My choices ensure the survival of this family and the protection of the innocent within our sphere. My soul is a consequence of my position. You lost your sister, your mother, and your father, all to this position," she countered, keeping her voice low but steady. "Don't tell me you don't feel it." He closed the distance between them with a predator's grace. His size, his sheer force of personality, was overwhelming in the quiet space. "Watch your step, Anya," he warned, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "You are learning the rules. Do not assume you are exempt from the punishment." He paused, leaning in, their faces inches apart. The air was thick with unacknowledged tension, the pull of shared blood, the clash of opposing morals, and an undeniable, forbidden spark of attraction that neither dared to name. "Rule number 4, he finished, his breath warm against her ear, is the unwritten one. Do not fall for the Wraith's darkness. It will consume you." He stepped away instantly, leaving her reeling from the intensity of the contact. He walked back to his study, the silence he left behind filled with the roaring echo of her own rapidly beating heart. Anya knew then. The greatest danger inside the Phoenix Nest wasn't Silas Thorne. It was the brother who was trying to push her away while simultaneously drawing her closer into his orbit of power and peril. Days turned into weeks. Anya proved to be an adept student, her analytical mind quickly grasping the complexities of the Volkov empire. She worked closely with Marcus, mapping out the suspected movements of Silas Thorne and the Crimson Pact, slowly earning the quiet respect of Nikolai's inner circle. The formality between Anya and Nikolai remained rigid, but the strain of their proximity in the isolated penthouse was beginning to tell. Their conversations were always strategic, their glances always sharp, yet beneath the surface, the shared trauma and the undeniable chemistry simmered. The turning point came late one night. Anya couldn't sleep. The city outside was alive with its own dark symphony. She slipped out of her suite and found herself in the observation lounge, drawn to the panoramic view. Nikolai was already there. He wasn't working. He was simply standing, silhouetted against the dark expanse, holding a glass of something clear and cold. He looked profoundly exhausted, the weight of his crown visible in the lines around his eyes. She didn't speak. She walked to the window on the opposite side, giving him space, but not leaving. The silence was heavy, but for the first time it didn't feel hostile. It felt shared. After long minutes he spoke, his voice quiet, devoid of the Wraith's usual edge. "I was 4 years old when they took you. I remember standing by our father, screaming your name, watching them drive away. I've carried that failure for 22 years. Anya turned, surprised by the raw admission. It wasn't a strategic move, it was a confession. "I remember the smell of roses," she murmured, sharing her fragment of memory, and the sound of a woman singing. And then, the cold. "Our mother's garden," Nikolai confirmed. "She loved roses. The cold was the winter air that rushed in when the explosion breached the conservatory. He took a deep, shaky breath, lifting the glass to his lips. I haven't felt warmth since that day. Anya walked slowly toward him. She stopped a foot away, close enough to feel the cold aura that perpetually surrounded him. You built this entire fortress, this hand around the belief that love and warmth create weakness. But you are wrong, Nikolai. It was the lack of love that broke our family, not the love itself. He turned on her, his eyes blazing, not with anger, but with intense, naked pain. You do not understand the weight I carry. I am responsible for every life in this building, every deal, every consequence. Sentiment is a luxury I cannot afford. I need to be a weapon. And what happens when the fight is over? She challenged, her voice soft but firm. Do you just stand here, weapon in hand, with nothing left to defend? She reached out, a purely intuitive, vulnerable gesture, and laid her hand gently on his arm. His muscles were taut beneath the fine wool of his jacket. The contact shattered the professional, familial, and emotional distance they had maintained. Nikolai flinched, not in fear, but in profound surprise, as if a long-dead nerve had suddenly come alive. His steel eyes dropped from hers to her hand on his arm, and then back up. He didn't pull away. Instead, he slowly set his glass down on the nearest surface, his attention now entirely hers. The Wraith was gone, leaving only the man who had been 4 years old and broken. Anya, he whispered, the name a sigh of warning and surrender. She felt the overwhelming urge to close the final distance, to offer the warmth he so desperately craved and feared. You don't have to carry it all alone, she said. His defenses crumbled in that frozen moment. He reached out, his powerful hand cupping the side of her face, his thumb stroking her cheekbone with a surprising tenderness. The touch was possessive, demanding, yet deeply comforting. You are fire, he murmured, echoing the description of their mother. You will burn me. And then, with a controlled ferocity that mirrored his fighting style, he closed the gap. His lips met hers in a kiss that was not romantic or soft, but desperate, demanding, and utterly consuming, a breaking of the dam that had held back 20 years of shared trauma, unspoken desire, and the terrifying magnetic pull of the Volkov blood. In the midst of the cold, unfeeling city, the cold moment was finally and irrevocably broken. The morning after their intense, forbidden kiss, the atmosphere in the penthouse was thick with unacknowledged passion and profound awkwardness. Nikolai was immediately distant, retreating into the cold, strategic demeanor of the Wraith, acting as if the entire event was a necessary but regrettable lapse in control. Anya refused to let him deny the moment. The kiss was not a mistake. It was a revelation, deepening the stakes of their relationship from simple survival to complex, dangerous emotion. You can't erase last night with a cold shoulder, Nikolai, she confronted him during a hurried strategy meeting. He looked up from a coded ledger, his eyes colder than usual. Last night was an error in judgment, a momentary release of strain. It will not happen again. We have a war to fight, Anya, not a romance to pursue. It was a confession, she insisted. A confession that you're human, and that you need me as more than just a key to your vault. I need you to be focused, he snapped, leaning forward. Thorn has made his move. We can no longer afford distractions. Indeed, the external threat was intensifying. Intelligence from Marcus confirmed that Silas Thorn had successfully infiltrated one of the Obsidian Hand's crucial logistics hubs in the south side of Chicago. This was not a random attack. It was a calculated strike against the Hand's financial stability, designed to draw Nikolai out. He wants you to react emotionally, Anya pointed out, tapping a pen on the map Marcus had laid out. He knows your reputation. He expects a brutal, direct retaliation. And he will get it, Nikolai said, his voice hard. I will not tolerate this incursion. No, Anya said, meeting his gaze steadily. You will play the game of power. You will use the rules he expects and then break them. She walked over to the map. Thorn's biggest strength is his visibility. He acts with theatrical brutality. Our strength is silence. If we send a hit team, he expects it. If we destabilize his own core operations, he is forced onto the defensive. Anya pointed to a series of empty, defunct warehouses marked on the map the supposed location of Thorn's most lucrative illegal drug distribution ring. These warehouses are empty. They're a red herring. His real operations are likely hidden inside a legitimate, protected business. Something he knows you won't touch without solid proof that risks exposure. Nikolai watched her, his expression shifting from irritation to intense interest. Go on. He owns the Rookwood Gallery. A legitimate art house, right? Anya continued. It's too perfect. High-value goods, constant private transport, and absolute discretion. No one raids an upscale art gallery. That's where his real assets are, hidden in transit or in the climate-controlled vaults. Nikolai stared at her, a profound silence settling in the room. He didn't compliment her, he simply processed. Marcus, Nikolai commanded, his voice sharp. Put 2 of our best surveillance teams on the Rookwood Gallery. I want verifiable proof of logistics activity within 24 hours. Marcus nodded, his eyes wide with surprise and respect for Anya's intuition. When they were alone again, Nikolai looked at Anya, a dark, complicated emotion swirling in his eyes, a mix of pride, desire, and fear. Your sight is sharp, Anya, he admitted, the reluctant compliment heavy. You see the angles. But if you are right, you have just put yourself even further into Thorn's line of fire. He will not forgive the person who disrupts his game. Then let him come, Anya stated, her voice hardening with resolve. I am done running. I am a Volkov, and I will not watch you destroy yourself trying to protect me. Their battle was no longer just external. It was internal, a struggle for power, for control, and for the right to lead a life defined by their own, not their father's or their enemies' rules. The game had truly begun, and Anya had just proved she wasn't merely a pawn. The intelligence from the surveillance teams confirmed Anya's theory. The Rookwood Gallery was indeed the hidden hub for Silas Thorne's illegal operations. The art house facade provided the perfect cover for the movement of assets. The Hand was prepared to move, but Nikolai insisted on absolute secrecy. He convened a small, clandestine meeting in the deepest sublevels of the tower, a concrete bunker that served as the Hand's war room. Present were Nikolai, Anya, Marcus, Dmitri, and 2 of Nikolai's most trusted lieutenants, Alexander, logistics, and Victor, enforcement. The plan is simple, Nikolai announced, his voice low and commanding, his eyes scanning the faces around the table. We hit the gallery tonight. Victor, you lead the direct infiltration. Alexander, you ensure the assets are secured and transferred to our lockup before dawn. Silence. No blood. No witnesses. We send Thorne a message that we know his secrets. He then looked directly at Anya. Anya will remain here. She is the center of the target, and I will not risk her exposure. No, Anya interjected, her voice firm, startling the lieutenants. I know the layout of a gallery better than any of your men. I have an eye for detail. I am coming with you. I need to see Thorne's operation firsthand to understand his vulnerabilities for the next move. Victor and Alexander exchanged glances of stunned disapproval. Challenging the Wraith was unheard of. Nikolai's gaze was icy. You are not an operative, Anya. You are the heir. You stay. I am the sight, Anya countered, quoting the Volkov tradition. Your men are focused on force and extraction. I will focus on the paper trail, the real intelligence that will allow you to dismantle Thorne from the inside out. If I stay here, I'm just a liability waiting to be captured. She met his stare, an implicit challenge to his control. She was using his own rules against him. Nikolai remained silent for a long, heavy moment. He wasn't just considering the plan. He was assessing the risk, the loyalty of his men, and the defiance of the woman who held his attention. Fine, he finally grated out, the word tasting like ash, but you will be under Dmitri's personal protection at all times. You move when he moves. You breathe when he breathes. If you compromise the mission, the consequences will be yours alone. He then turned to the lieutenants, his gaze instantly hardening. This mission is the test of the Hand's loyalty. Thorne is powerful. There is a traitor in this family, a weak link who told Thorne about Valerius's plans. We will find him. If any of you fail, or if I detect the smallest hint of disloyalty toward Anya, the legitimate heir, you will answer to me, personally. And my retribution is absolute. The men nodded, their faces grim, the knot of loyalty now inextricably tied to Anya's own survival. As the meeting broke, Nikolai pulled Anya aside. He handed her a small, sleek device. A direct line to me. Use it only if you are separated from Dmitri and in mortal danger. If I hear your voice, I will burn Chicago to the ground to find you. The threat was fierce, possessive, and undeniably protective. The words were dark, but the intention was clear. You need to trust me, Nikolai, Anya whispered, gazing up at the man who was leading them into the fire. Trust is for the dead, Anya, he replied, his voice a low rumble. I rely on necessity, and right now, I need your sight to survive. The decision was made. Tonight, Anya Volkov would step out of the Phoenix Nest and into the deadly streets of Chicago, officially becoming a player in the bloody game of power. The raid on the Rookwood Gallery was executed with the chilling precision that defined the Obsidian Hand. Anya, masked and moving with Dmitri in the shadows, felt the terrifying thrill of their efficiency. She used her sight, quickly zeroing in on a hidden vault disguised as a temperature-controlled painting storage. While Victor's team secured the assets, Anya photographed ledgers and encrypted data files. They were successful, extracting massive amounts of Thorn's illegal commodities and intelligence, dealing a crippling blow to the Crimson Pact. The next morning, back in the tower, the atmosphere was triumphant but tense. Nikolai, looking utterly exhausted yet energized, was reviewing the intelligence Anya had secured. "This is better than gold," he stated, tapping the tablet. "These files link Thorn directly to 3 compromised politicians and a shipping cartel. We can dismantle him quietly." "Good," Anya replied, relief washing over her. "Now, we use this to find the traitor, the one who sold out our father." Nikolai's gaze hardened. "That is already in progress." The logistics of the attack on the Hand's hub were too specific. It had to come from someone high up. The moment was interrupted by a frantic call from the tower's main security desk. Marcus, pale and visibly shaken, entered the war room moments later. "Nikolai," Marcus stammered, his usual composure completely gone. "We have a critical breach. A security camera feed from the Gold Coast, a block from the tower, just caught a known associate of Thorn's. He was seen leaving a meeting with Alexander. Alexander, the logistics chief, who had been in the war room just hours before, and one of Nikolai's highest-ranking lieutenants." Anya felt a cold shock. Alexander was the logistics man, the one who knew the exact location of the Hand's assets and vulnerabilities. Nikolai rose slowly from the table. His expression was not angry. It was a mask of sheer, terrifying finality. "The knot of loyalty has snapped," he stated, his voice dangerously even. "Marcus, where is Alexander now?" "He was summoned to the penthouse about an hour ago," Marcus replied, his eyes wide. "He's still on the floor. He's in the East Wing, reviewing the extraction data from the raid." The irony was brutal. The traitor was already inside the walls, operating under the guise of loyalty. Nikolai looked at Dmitri. "Secure the perimeter. Let no one in or out of this floor. Anya, stay here." "No," Anya insisted, grabbing his arm. "Nikolai, you can't go alone. This is personal. You will make a mistake." "My judgment is flawless, Sestra," he said, pulling away. "The Wraith handles the treachery." But as he walked toward the door, Anya noticed a barely perceptible tremor in his hand, the first sign of weakness, the emotional impact of the betrayal. He was walking into a personal confrontation, fueled by the memory of his father's death. She looked at Marcus. "Marcus, tell me the layout of the East Wing. Are there external access points?" Marcus, still shaken, pointed to a blueprint. "Only a secured, single-use air vent. Nikolai had it installed for emergencies. It leads out to a discreet rooftop landing pad." "Nikolai!" Anya yelled as he reached the door. "If he is the one, he'll have an exit plan. Don't confront him in a dead-end room. He's a logistics man. He thinks 3 steps ahead." Nikolai stopped. He didn't turn, but he listened. He was forced to acknowledge the truth in her warning. "Dmitri," Nikolai commanded, his voice a low growl. "Take 2 men. Secure the rooftop access. I will meet Alexander in the hall." He gave Anya one last, hard look, a mixture of anger for her defiance and gratitude for her clarity. Then, he was gone, disappearing down the corridor with the lethal stillness of his namesake. Anya stood rigid, listening to the heavy silence that followed. She had just saved Nikolai from a potentially fatal trap, but she knew the confrontation that was about to take place would change the balance of power and their own relationship, forever. The enemy was no longer outside. He was inside the Hand. The tension was palpable even in the secluded war room. Anya watched the live thermal feed from the cameras, her heart pounding against her ribs. She saw Nikolai approach the East Wing corridor, flanked by 2 loyal guards, moving with deliberate, cold purpose. Alexander, the logistics chief, stepped into the corridor, feigning surprise. He was a man of calculated poise, but Anya noticed the subtle stiffness in his shoulders. "Capo," Alexander greeted, his voice smooth. "The extraction data is being processed. A huge success." Success built on treachery. Nikolai's voice was low, resonating even through the camera feed. He stopped 10 feet from the traitor. "I don't understand," Alexander said, his face a mask of confusion. "You understand completely," Nikolai countered. "Silas Thorne's associate was seen leaving your meeting last night. You fed him the logistics hub information. You set the stage for our father's death, and you nearly allowed Thorne to cripple the Hand." Alexander's composure snapped. He pulled a compact, suppressed weapon from his inner jacket, aiming it at Nikolai. "You were too soft, Nikolai. Valerius was weak. Thorn offered the true future, a dynasty built on global reach, not just Chicago's shadows, and I was guaranteed a seat at the top." The moment the gun appeared, the scene erupted. Before Alexander could fire, Nikolai moved. It wasn't a fight, it was an execution of martial precision. He dodged the first panicked shot, which harmlessly struck the marble wall, and closed the distance. He disarmed Alexander with a brutal, efficient twist that sent the gun clattering. Nikolai then drove Alexander backward against the wall. His powerful forearm pressed hard against the traitor's throat, cutting off his air. The physical violence was sharp, controlled, and focused entirely on incapacitation, not unnecessary bloodshed. "You betrayed your blood," Nikolai growled, his voice a dangerous, raw rumble, amplified by his proximity to the wall mic. "You betrayed my father. You betrayed the hand." "It's over, Capo," one of the guards stated, moving in to restrain the gasping Alexander. Nikolai stepped back, his chest heaving, his face set in a furious, stone-cold mask. The rage was contained, but terrifying in its intensity. "Secure him. Interrogation will be handled personally. I want Thorn's full roster by sunrise." He then looked directly into the camera that Anya was watching, his eyes conveying a chilling message of absolute, unforgiving justice. The enemy within was neutralized. Anya felt sickened by the cold-blooded necessity of the violence, but relieved that Nikolai was safe. She also felt a profound understanding of the burden he carried, the personal cost of maintaining order. Moments later, Nikolai stormed back into the war room. He looked at Anya, his breath ragged. "He tried to escape through the rooftop vent," he stated, running a hand through his perfectly slicked hair, momentarily disheveled. Dmitri intercepted him. "Your warning saved me from a longer, cleaner trap." "You were right." He walked over to her, his intensity overwhelming. The blood on his cuff was minimal, but the danger radiating from him was maximal. "The traitor is secured," he said, his voice low. "But this means Thorn knows we are moving against him. He will retaliate immediately, publicly, and violently. We are out of time, Anya. We need the vault opened now." He reached out and gripped her shoulders, his gaze burning into hers. The urgency was desperate, overriding their lingering awkwardness. "I need you to open the vault. I need the information our father left us. Can you do it, Anya? Can you face his final test?" She nodded, her own determination matching his fierce intensity. "I can. I am ready." The betrayal had clarified everything. The lines were drawn. Volkov against Thorn, brother and sister against the shadows. The quiet war was about to become a public battle for the soul of Chicago. The immediate threat of Alexander's betrayal was neutralized, but his capture served only to accelerate Silas Thorn's next move. Thorn, desperate and cornered, bypassed the formality of the Mafia war and struck at the most exposed part of the Volkov empire, its legacy. The day after the confrontation, chaos erupted. Thorn orchestrated a massive, simultaneous leak of classified Volkov intelligence to major international news outlets, exposing just enough of the Hand's illegal activities to trigger high-level government investigations and cause panic among their legitimate partners. "He's trying to cripple our legal fronts and expose us to the authorities," Nikolai raged, staring at the global headlines on his screen. "We can't move assets. We can't communicate without being monitored. We are on lockdown." "This is exactly what he wants," Anya argued, her mind racing. "He's forcing you to fight on his turf, the public eye. We need to go dark. We need to use the one asset he doesn't know exists, the vault." Nikolai agreed, but their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. The tower was secure from the outside, but the legitimate authorities were already preparing to breach the building on the grounds of corporate espionage. "Marcus," Nikolai commanded, "prepare the extraction route. Dmitri, get the car ready. We leave tonight. We go to the secure location our father established for the vault. Anya, get the emblem." As Anya returned to her suite to retrieve the obsidian necklace, she found a small, sleek smartphone placed conspicuously on her bed. It wasn't one of the heavily encrypted Volkov devices. It was an untraceable burner. The screen was lit with a single, chilling text message. "The Wraith will lead you to the vault. Do not open it for him. He is the betrayer. Meet me at the first checkpoint. Save your mother's legacy. The Guardian." Anya felt a dizzying wave of coldness. The Guardian? She remembered Nikolai mentioning that their father's oldest, most loyal protector had sent the initial warning. Could the true traitor be Nikolai himself? He was the one who insisted on her staying, the one who tried to dismiss the passionate moment, the one who controlled every move. Alexander might have been a pawn, diverting their attention. She looked at the obsidian emblem in her hand. The vault required the male and female heir, the steel and the sight working together. If Nikolai was the traitor, he would need her to unlock it, and then he would discard her. A new, terrifying possibility surfaced. Thorn hadn't just corrupted an underling. He might have been working a double game, framing Alexander to clear the path for the real traitor. Anya slipped the burner phone into her pocket. She had to take the risk. If she followed Nikolai and he turned on her, it would be too late. If she betrayed Nikolai and he was innocent, she would doom the Hand and their chance for justice. She returned to the war room, her face carefully neutral. I have the emblem. Where are we going? Nikolai gave her the coordinates, a remote estate outside of Chicago, hidden deep in the wooded suburbs. The initial meeting point is the old boathouse, a mile from the main house. We secure the perimeter there, then proceed. As they were moving toward the private elevator, a heavy explosion rocked the lower levels of the tower. Not an organized attack, but a calculated distraction. They're hitting the main power grid, Dmitri yelled. The police will be here in minutes. Move, now. Nikolai shoved Anya toward the emergency service exit, the one leading to the subterranean parking garage. The group Nikolai, Anya, Dmitri, and 2 guards raced through the dark, echoing tunnels. As they reached the designated car, Anya made her choice. Dmitri, she yelled, pointing toward a shadowy side door. I think I saw movement. 2 men, armed. They must have used the explosion as cover. Dmitri and the 2 guards instantly sprinted toward the side door, their professionalism overriding their caution. It was a lie. In that split second of distraction, Anya turned to Nikolai, who was now alone by the car. I'm sorry, she whispered, and with a swift, desperate move learned from weeks of training, she grabbed the heavy emergency flashlight from the car door and struck Nikolai hard on the back of his head. He staggered, his eyes wide in confusion and profound, wounded betrayal. He crumpled to the concrete floor, unconscious. Anya stared at her brother, the man who had protected her, kissed her, and confessed his pain. The woman who hated violence had just committed an act of physical betrayal. She didn't know if she had just saved herself or damned them both. Forgive me, Nikolai, she whispered, grabbing the car keys from his belt. I have to know the truth. She got into the car, reversed sharply, and sped out of the dark underground garage, leaving the Wraith unconscious on the cold concrete floor as the sirens began to wail in the distance. The ultimate betrayal had been enacted, all based on a single, anonymous text message. Anya drove the armored Volkov sedan through the Chicago night, her mind a storm of fear, guilt, and grim determination. She didn't look at the rearview mirror. She couldn't face the image of Nikolai lying on the concrete. She had chosen the word of an anonymous guardian over the man who held her past and her future. She followed the coordinates to the boathouse, the initial checkpoint. It was a rustic, isolated wooden structure on the shore of a dark, windswept lake. A figure was waiting outside. Not a massive, menacing guard, but a slender, older gentleman, his face etched with kindness and melancholy. You came, the man said, his voice gentle and relieved. I am Dr. Ilian. I was your father's most trusted confidant, and the one who arranged your departure years ago. I am the guardian. Anya stumbled out of the car, clutching the emblem. Dr. Ilian, why did you tell me to betray Nikolai? Alexander was the traitor. Nikolai caught him. Dr. Ilian sighed, his eyes full of sorrow. Alexander was a red herring. Thorn needed you to think the threat was external, but the real rot is at the head. Nikolai is a genius, Anya, but he is fundamentally broken. He is consumed by the need for power and control. He never wanted to share the legacy. He wanted to claim it all. But he saved me. He risked everything for me. Anya argued, the image of his eyes when she hit him flashing in her mind. He needed the emblem, Dr. Ilian stated firmly. He needed you to open the vault. But our father, Valerius, was wiser than Nikolai gave him credit for. The vault contains 2 items, the assets that sustain the Hand, and a coded, final will. That will names you as the sole inheritor of the entire Volkov enterprise, provided you can prove you possess the sight, and demonstrate loyalty to the family's original purpose order, not vengeance. Anya felt the world tilt. Valerius had created a final test, pitting brother against sister. The emblem, the sight, the female heir, it was all a profound test of leadership. Nikolai knows the existence of the assets, but he doesn't know about the secret clause in the will. If he opens the vault first, he will seize the assets and destroy the will, eliminating you in the process. Dr. Ilian continued, his voice urgent. Thorn found out about the will through a compromised lawyer. He tried to have Valerius killed, hoping to destabilize the hand and find the will himself. But then, he saw an opportunity in Nikolai's ambition. Thorn has been feeding Nikolai information, guiding him, letting him think he is in control, all leading to this moment. Anya looked down at the necklace, the weight of the dynasty now resting on her neck. Her true purpose was not just to be a figurehead, but the legitimate ruler, the one Valerius trusted to lead with a moral compass. The vault is under the main house, a few 100 yards from here, Dr. Ilian said. You have to get there first. If Nikolai wakes up, he will come straight here. He will not stop. As if on cue, a faint, distant roar of a powerful engine broke the silence of the woods. Nikolai was awake. He was coming. Go, Anya, Dr. Ilian urged. I will slow him down. You are the true heir. Do not let your father's final hope die. Anya, armed only with the truth and the obsidian emblem, sprinted into the dark, silent woods toward the estate. She was no longer running from the Mafia. She was running to her throne. The time for denial was over. The time for leadership had begun. Anya ran through the freezing woods, the adrenaline dulling the bite of the cold air. The distant sound of the powerful Volkov car engine was her grim clock. She knew that even if Dr. Ilian delayed him, Nikolai would track her down with terrifying speed. She reached the estate, a magnificent, isolated fortress blending into the rugged landscape. She located the hidden entrance to the subterranean vault, a heavy steel door disguised beneath a stone gazebo, exactly as Marcus had described during his historical lessons. She pressed the obsidian emblem into the specialized lock panel. A cold, blue light scanned the necklace, then illuminated Anya's face. A computerized voice, Valerius Volkov's voice, echoed. Access granted. Initiate Heir's code. The heavy door began to hiss open, but before it could fully retract, a shadow fell over the gazebo. I knew I shouldn't have trusted a naive graphic designer's acting skills. Nikolai stood there, his suit immaculate despite the chaos, his face a chilling mask of furious betrayal. There was a thin line of blood above his temple from her blow. But his eyes were the most dangerous thing about him. Dmitri and the other guards were nowhere in sight. He had clearly outrun them or ordered them to hold back. Dr. Ilian told you to betray me, didn't he? Nikolai's voice was low, lethal, the sentimental fool. He played you perfectly. He told me the truth, Nikolai, Anya countered, clutching the emblem tightly. He told me about the final will, the one that names me the sole inheritor, the one you planned to destroy after you got the assets. Nikolai flinched, the accusation hitting its mark. The ice in his eyes wavered, revealing a glimpse of profound, cold desperation. Valerius was a romantic fool. This is a war, Anya. You don't lead an organization like the Hand with sight and morality. You lead it with ruthlessness. The will is a liability that will tear the family apart. No, Anya insisted. Your ambition will tear it apart. The Hand was built on order, not tyranny. Suddenly, a loud, clear voice cut through the tension from the edge of the woods. A beautiful family dispute, but the time for talking is over. Silas Thorn emerged, flanked by 5 heavily armed men from the Crimson Pact. He was a silver-haired man with a chillingly elegant smile. Anya, my dear, Thorn purred, his eyes fixed on the open vault door. You saved me the trouble of a lengthy siege. Now, if you'll be a good girl, hand me the key. I will deal with your emotional brother. Nikolai and Anya instantly shifted, their shared Volkov blood overriding their internal conflict. They were facing the real enemy. Thorn, Nikolai snarled, stepping half a pace in front of Anya. You kill my father, you steal my assets, and you think you can simply walk into my vault? Your vault? Thorn laughed, a dry, cruel sound. It will be my vault when I access the assets and the proof that will destroy your organization. After all, it was you who led me here, Nikolai. You, consumed by your own greed, were so easy to manipulate into thinking Alexander was the traitor. Thorn raised his hand, signaling his men. I need your strength, Nikolai, Anya whispered, gripping his jacket. You are the steel. I am the sight. Let's do this the Volkov way. Nikolai looked down at her, the moment of betrayal and anger superseded by the urgency of survival. He saw not a betrayer, but a co-heir, stepping up to fight. A slow, chilling smile, the true predatory smile of the Wraith, spread across his face. Agreed, he growled. But after this, we settle the matter of the crown. The unlikely alliance was forged in the face of death. Nikolai erupted into action, drawing the attack to himself, moving with a fluid, terrifying violence that kept Thorn's men momentarily off balance. As the chaos of the ensuing, controlled melee began, Anya didn't freeze. She bolted for the open vault door. She wasn't fighting for the Hand anymore. She was fighting for the will, the one thing that could truly save their family. The fight outside the vault was sharp and brutal. Nikolai, fueled by 2 decades of suppressed rage and the immediate threat to his sister, fought with breathtaking, calculated savagery. He neutralized 2 of Thorn's men quickly, drawing the remaining 3 away from the vault entrance. Anya scrambled into the vault, slamming the heavy steel door shut just as a burst of gunfire echoed outside. The sound of the door closing was an act of profound betrayal and profound loyalty all at once. She was now safe, but she had left her brother to fight a heavily armed gang alone. Inside, the vault was a marvel of technology and history. On one pedestal lay a tablet, the encrypted digital assets. On another, a simple, locked wooden chest, secured by a biometric scanner. The physical legacy. Anya knew the test. She placed the emblem into a slot on the wooden chest. The scanner lit up. Eliza Volkov's voice spoke again. Access requires the final biometric, a bond of trust and shared blood. Initiate handprint. Anya pressed her hand onto the scanner. It failed. The test wasn't about the emblem. It was about the blood bond, a symbol of their unity. She needed Nikolai. Fear, hot and sharp, pierced her. She had to believe that her brother's instinct for survival was as fierce as his ambition. She activated the emergency comms on the internal monitor. "Nikolai, are you there?" Static. Then a rough, strained voice. "Anya, get out of there. Thorn is." The line cut out with a crash. The muffled sounds of combat intensified. Thorn's men were closing in. Nikolai was injured. Anya looked at the vault door, then at the chest. She had the key, the sight, and the truth. But without her brother's physical presence, she had nothing. She had to risk everything to save him and the legacy. She hit the emergency manual override. The steel door began to slowly grind open. She emerged to a terrifying scene. Nikolai was pinned down behind a stone pillar, his arm bleeding heavily from a gunshot wound. Thorn, his face contorted with triumph, stood over him, holding a weapon. The remaining 2 guards were flanking the vault door. "You're too late, little heir," Thorn sneered. "The Wraith is finished." "No, he's not," Anya yelled, distracting him. She held the obsidian emblem high above her head. "I have the key, Thorn. You want the assets? You have to let us go." Thorn hesitated, his eyes flashing to the emblem. "Kill the boy. Take the girl, and the necklace." As the men moved, Nikolai, seeing his chance, lunged. He grabbed one of the guards and used him as a shield, simultaneously tackling the second guard to the ground. "The legacy, Anya. Get back inside," Nikolai roared, pushing himself up, his face pale from blood loss. Anya didn't go back. She ran straight to Nikolai. Ignoring the chaos, she grabbed his bleeding arm and pulled him toward the vault. "We do this together," she insisted. "The will requires both of us. It's the final test." Nikolai, shocked by her stubbornness and her loyalty, allowed himself to be dragged. He saw the truth in her eyes. She had betrayed him to save him from a perceived danger, and now she was risking her life to complete the mission with him. They stumbled inside the vault. Thorn's men were right behind them. "Close the door!" Nikolai gasped, collapsing against the stone gazebo. Anya pressed the manual switch. The door began to close again, slowly, agonizingly. Thorn managed to squeeze off a shot that ricocheted off the wall near Anya's head before the heavy steel sealed them inside, plunging them into darkness. Nikolai, weakened and bloody, leaned against the cold stone, fighting to stay conscious. "The chest," Anya urged, her own hands shaking, the final biometric. He looked at her, his steel eyes filled with a desperate, new emotion, a raw mix of love, exhaustion, and absolute trust. He knew she could have left him. She hadn't. She pressed his bleeding hand onto the scanner. His pain-filled handprint, merged with her life-filled handprint, finally triggered the final code. Bond of blood and trust verified. Final will unlocked. The small wooden chest clicked open, bathing the vault in a soft golden light. In that light, their relationship was irrevocably tested, and finally, undeniably cemented. They were in this, together. With Nikolai secured and the final will unlocked, the tension in the subterranean vault subsided into a grim, exhausted silence. Anya was already tending to Nikolai's arm, using a first aid kit she found in a wall compartment. "The test was trust," Nikolai murmured, his voice weak but clear. "Our father knew the biggest threat to the hand wasn't Thorn. It was the 2 of us, fighting each other for the crown." Anya looked at the contents of the chest, a leather-bound coded journal and a sealed envelope marked final disposition. She opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Eliza Volkov, and the formal, Legal will. Valerius's letter was a heartbreaking confession. He had created the test, the two heirs, the final biometric, because he knew his children, driven by their trauma, would eventually clash. He did not trust Nikolai's headstrong ruthlessness or Anya's sentimental independence, but he trusted their shared blood to forge an unbreakable alliance when faced with mutual destruction. The will was clear. Anya Volkov was named the Capo dei Capi, with Nikolai designated as her chief strategist and protector the steel for the site. "He gave you the crown," Nikolai stated, his lips twisting into a wry smile. "He always knew you were the better leader. He gave us the chance to lead together," Anya corrected, her voice gentle but firm. "The power lies in the alliance, not the title." "We can discuss the new hierarchy later," Nikolai said, his eyes hardening with focus. "Now, we deal with Thorn." Anya retrieved the coded journal. The journal, written by their mother, was the key. She used her sight for the first time as the true capo, quickly deciphering the complex, personal cipher. Thorn wasn't just after the assets, Anya stated, her voice tight with revelation. He was after this, the full, unredacted log of his original operations. Our mother was an operative, Nikolai. She documented everything, including the specific political ties that protect him. The journal contained details that Alexander's intelligence leak hadn't touched proof of Thorn's collusion with the Chicago political machine and, more importantly, the location of his private, illegal offshore accounts. "We don't need to fight him physically anymore," Anya said, looking at her brother, a dangerous intelligence shining in her eyes. "We fight him with silence and legitimacy. We feed this data, anonymously and with surgical precision, to the authorities we know are honest and to the media we can trust to be relentless." Nikolai's gaze was fixed on her, no longer with anger or betrayal, but with grudging admiration and a fierce, possessive pride. He saw the site in action, calculated, effective, and devastatingly clean. "A clean kill," Nikolai murmured, his lips curving into a predatory smile. "A true Volkov strike." They spent the next few hours in the vault, Anya using the vault's encrypted satellite link to execute the surgical intelligence drop. By dawn, the information was in the hands of the press and the Federal Bureau. As the sun rose over the Chicago suburbs, the sirens of federal cars, not Mafia thugs, were heard approaching the estate. Thorn, desperate and trapped, realized he was outmaneuvered. He hadn't just been betrayed by Nikolai, he had been destroyed by the unified Volkov legacy, a threat he never imagined. The downfall of the mastermind was complete. Anya looked at Nikolai, his head resting against the cold wall, his eyes closed. "It's over," she whispered. "We're safe." "Not yet," he said, opening his eyes, which held a raw, deep emotion. "The hand is safe. Now, we deal with the cost." The aftermath of Silas Thorn's downfall was swift and decisive. The hand, led by its newly united leadership, quickly contained the damage from Thorn's leaks and leveraged the intelligence from the vault to dismantle the Crimson Pack's operations with minimal public exposure. Nikolai's immediate action to lock down the tower had prevented further systemic damage. Days later, the tension of the war had given way to the complicated, fragile new reality. Anya was formally introduced to the inner circle as the Capo dei Capi. Her youth and soft appearance were initially met with skepticism, but her quick, decisive actions, guided by Nikolai's quiet backing, quickly cemented her authority. The Obsidian Hand was now led by the sight and the steel. Anya found Nikolai late one night, standing on the balcony of the penthouse, gazing out at the city, their city, now quieted by their victory. His arm was bandaged, and he looked less like a wraith and more like a weary soldier. She walked up beside him. The air was cool, the moon high and clear over Lake Michigan. "The hand is secure," Anya said softly. "The structure holds. Your loyalty is absolute. You could have destroyed the will, or you could have challenged the results. Why didn't you?" Nikolai turned, his eyes searching hers, no longer cold, but vulnerable. "Because you left me for dead on the concrete floor, armed only with a suspicious text message, and then you risked your life to pull my bleeding body into the vault. You are loyal to the idea of the hand, Anya, not the ambition of one man. That is the leadership we need." He reached out, his hand brushing her cheek, a touch devoid of the professional distance they had maintained. "You are the warmth, and I need the warmth to survive." Anya leaned into the touch, a profound sense of relief and acceptance washing over her. "And you are the steel, Nikolai. I can't lead this alone. I don't want to. It's too cold." "Then let's redefine the rules," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "You are the capo. I am your protector. And in the shadows, we are simply two people who were broken and found each other." He pulled her into his arms, and this time, the kiss was not desperate or demanding. It was a profound, undeniable declaration of devotion. It was the kiss of two souls irrevocably bound by blood, war, and the terrifying, beautiful future they now faced together. "I gave up my life for this family," Anya whispered against his lips. "I won't let it consume me." "It won't," Nikolai promised, holding her tightly. "I will defend your light, Anya, even from my own darkness." He stepped back, taking her hand and looking out over the sleeping city. "We take an oath now, under the moonlight, where only the Volkovs can hear. We vow to lead the hand not through brutality, but through calculated order. We vow to honor the life our mother wanted for us." "I vow," Anya repeated, her voice strong and clear. "Good," Nikolai said, raising her hand to his lips and kissing her palm, a gesture of respect and possession. "Now, we build a new future, together." The oath under the moonlight was the final seal on their alliance, turning a forced necessity into an undeniable romance and a formidable partnership. Weeks turned into months. The Obsidian Hand found its new rhythm under the leadership of Anya, the Capo dei Capi, and Nikolai, her consigliere and protector. The structure of the organization stabilized, its focus shifting away from petty crime toward high-level financial and political manipulation, a cleaner, quieter, and far more effective form of power. Their personal relationship, once fraught with tension and betrayal, blossomed into a deep, passionate partnership. In public, Nikolai was her unwavering shield, his presence radiating an authority that silenced dissent. In the private isolation of the penthouse, he was her lover, attentive, fiercely protective, and finally, capable of emotional honesty. Anya brought the sight to the organization, seeing opportunities for legitimate expansion, and guiding the hand toward a gradual, but real, redemption. Nikolai provided the steel, ruthlessly eliminating the remaining vestiges of the old ways, and ensuring the new order was respected with silent, undeniable force. One evening, Anya stood on the balcony of the penthouse, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. She wore the obsidian emblem now, openly, not as a key, but as a crown, a symbol of the family she had embraced. Nikolai came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Marcus reports, the last of Thorn's political ties have been quietly severed," he murmured, his breath warm on her neck. "The books are cleaner than they've been in decades." "You are a natural, mój związduszka, my little star." "We are a natural," Anya corrected, leaning back into his embrace. "I can't imagine doing this without your cold, analytical mind to balance my dangerous optimism, and I can't imagine living without your warmth to balance my self-imposed darkness," he admitted, the honesty surprising even himself. He was no longer the wraith consumed by loss. He was a man who had found his purpose and his partner. "The cost of the past was paid," Anya said, referencing the lives they had lost and the betrayal they had endured. "But the future we are building is worth it. It's a life lived in the shadows, yes, but one illuminated by our own rules." Nikolai tightened his hold. "You are safe, Anya. We are safe, and we will never be separated again." He turned her to face him, the moonlight illuminating her profile, and he kissed her a long, tender promise of their future. They had not been able to abandon the Volkov legacy, but they had fundamentally changed its nature. The lost heir had found her place not just in a family, but at the head of a formidable power, alongside the man who was both her greatest threat and her greatest love. They were two broken pieces, finally fitting together, ruling their empire from the quiet, luminous height of the Chicago skyline.